did you go to school?
And here's your...
What do you think of what's going on right now, mate?
These evil little invisible parasites.
Satan-worshipping Freemason moron.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
We're not run by factions.
Get the fuck out of camera!
There are much more powerful international forces in play.
Is this pink guy? Is this what pink guy is? I don't fucking know what's happening.
Please go outside and look at the moon quickly.
It's been crazy, guys, but guess what? It's how it is, mate.
Mate, because I want to do you slowly.
Well, I ain't spending any time on it.
Welcome to the Conditional Release Program. I'm Joel Hill, and Jack the Insider is in Australia now, but he's jet-lagged as fuck and not very receptive. But once the dust clears and he finishes off his duty-free cigarettes, then we will have him back. In the meantime, we have Dave. Dave is a cooker expert, not because he wants to be, but because he has to be. Because what cookers have done is they have infiltrated his life in ways that we can't possibly imagine. There is the environmental activism, cookers. There's his local area, cookers. And now, in council, there are cookers. And before we get to this, which is going to make your blood boil and make you angry and make you lose hair and make you really want a beer, oh, fuck, there's a novel idea. Maybe you should go to cbco.beer and buy some beer. And because Dave is so benevolent, he went down to CBCO and he knocked on their doors and he said, give them a discount code. And they said, there's already a discount code, dickhead. It's CRP10. And then he left victorious, knowing that our listeners have a discount code, had a discount code, still have a discount code. Use the discount code. It's good. All right, Dave, tell me about how fucked we are.
We have a cooked council, I think.
We have a cooked council. Is it a My Place council? Is that safe to say?
It's a party of all cookers.
Okay.
We have a preacher for a mayor.
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah, fire and brimstone, all very cruisy, but angry people.
Does he like the gays?
No.
I thought you'd say that. I was hoping you might surprise me with a fire and brimstone, but in the sort of like cool, like Rob Halford sort of Judas Priest kind of way. But no, we can't have nice things.
I think he might if the gays in turn hated on the trans.
Yes,
I think that's
gays
where
against
we're at.
groomers. The enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah, so
Cool.
he's quite hard to find stuff out about. No, he's been on council for a term.
He does have a councillor thing. Councillor David Wooten, isn't it? Daniel Wooten?
Dan Watton.
Dan Watton.
But
yes. This is why we've got the expert in there. I have no fuck idea what we're talking about.
He spent the first term herding the cats, of which there were
several
3 on council, and now we have 6, including Dan as mayor.
Cool.
But he runs a ministry, one in the LGA and another down at Lake Macquarie, and back in 22, I think, they hosted the Machine Gun Preacher, and I'm just forgetting the name behind that man.
I call him Gerard Butler because, played him in the film.
It was Sound of Freedom before there was Sound of Freedom. There was a Hollywood movie.
Basically.
There were kids to be rescued in Sudan. There were stories coming back from Sudan that all was not as it seemed. Anyway, Dan hosted this guy in his ministry. He got on council. He made friends with Councillor Jess Jerd, who was out and out My Place.
Yes. Well, didn't she deny it quite a bit, though? Like, wasn't that a thing?
She said, "What's my place?"
Yeah.
Having been in the group with not one but 2 profiles and gone to all the meetings.
Yeah.
Initially, she damn well knew what My Place was. Interestingly, when My Place launched in Newcastle at the beginning of 23, they had the meeting down in the park where all the stand in the parks were throughout lockdown.
Okay.
In a place where they could hide from the road. So the cops came running over to bust them breaching lockdown. They could all run away. But, yeah, so the launch of My Place was there, and at that launch, they specifically broke up into subgroups of local government areas, of which there are 5 surrounding Newcastle.
Okay.
And there wasn't one for Cessnock, and I
Oh,
quickly asked, where's Cessnock? And just got this mysterious Cessnock special reply. Sort of went back to my mate and said, God, what's that mean? And we looked
Cessnock
at
is
each other
special.
and went, it means they've already got someone in council, and we were right. So
Yeah,
that was
okay.
Jess. Then there was Uncle Ian. He's retired. He was on council for 24 years, always just a right-wing redneck sort of fucker. But
Okay.
he went
So
mad.
uncle, not Indigenous.
Well, in fact, he stood over the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Committee back in 23 and said he was a proud white man.
Oh, wow. Cool.
At which point some of the, you can imagine some of the strong women on that committee wanting to punch his lights out.
Yeah.
That spilled over into the car park.
Nice.
But it got quite a very big write-up in the Newcastle Herald, 2 pages spread about the serious sort of craziness going on Cessnock Council, particularly with racism. And about 3 days after that, Ian responded by saying, I'm more Aboriginal than anybody of you know, whatever that means.
Okay. Yeah, because I was
And-
fucking born here, cunts.
Yeah, and he
I'm guessing
claimed
that's the vibe.
Well, actually, he's claimed ancestry to the same people we were talking about on the Central Coast with the Tinfoil Tales podcast. So,
The green guy?
yeah, the green guy. So,
Nice one.
yeah, it all
Yeah.
made sense in the end.
I must say, I saw today Malcolm Roberts was getting pissy, as usual, about welcome to countries, saying, no one needs to welcome me to country. And I think it was Finbar on Twitter who said, yes, Malcolm was born in India. And it's just like, yeah, man, you were born in fucking India. Don't get all uppity about your fucking country, mate. Like, you're a guest. Piss off.
It's just, yeah, I can imagine welcome to country will be one of the first things this
Council will get
coalition of the
real fucking
Muntins-
shitty on.
Yeah. And just to make a point, and it will get all their fans out in the wards going rah, 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 and bringing their ensigns and
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is just going to be a fucking circus.
get things off on the right foot,
Yeah.
according to them. So, yeah, there's that lot. But it looks like we've got a cooker mayor or a Christo sort of hard Christian mayor with a bunch of cookers under his wing. The numbers look like there'll be 6 far right, 6 Labor, and 1, I guess you'd describe her as a sane sort of
Centrist independent sort of thing.
centrist, business-minded. She runs a local
okay.
news agent.
Yeah, cool.
So she's going to in all likelihood, bear the brunt of what cookers have done. We all know they've done and what they can do, and God knows the games they'll get up to.
Well, it's
trying
kind of
to
terrifying. Like, they know how to find her. This fucking news agency. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
Like, just knowing that you've just got this open door and at any point someone could turn up and just start, like, because, like, we've seen this with, like, pharmacists, like, kids at pharmacies being harassed by people like fucking Guru with piece of paper saying, this is your cease and desist, we're going to hang you.
Funnily enough, one of our new cooked councillors is a pharmacist up the road.
Oh, really?
How
does that work? How does that work?
So very cleverly, after the whole 7:30 report gestured, my place, Bergwerf refuting the Holocaust.
Yeah, that was a good.
Episode. There was a bit of sniggering at Jess around town after that, but midway through 2023, and it was really noticeable, they pivoted to roads. They visited communities with roading issues.
Okay.
and you could tell it was an out and out restructuring of themselves and their reputation to prepare for a tilt at council with all the talking points you can fire a community up over, except it was insane. She went out and it worked. She went out and
Wow.
talked about a road that was already being repaired, and then a tourist development in where two rivers meet, and it's just a bubbling basin during a flood and totally inappropriate for the campground. But she went and claimed to have saved that when both Liberals and Labor on council had already rejected it.
Okay.
And then along came a road widening project that, it's one of those arterial roads out of town. There's a whole new suburb going in. There's already gridlock, and they need to widen the road, which they'd already agreed to in council years ago. The developer donations have been paid, meaning the developer that's constructing most of this new suburb foots a bit of the bill to put in infrastructure.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
So it's already paid. So if they don't widen the road, that money has to go back to the developer who gave it to them. But they're saying they're going to stop the road and stop the widening. And they managed to have a convoy over this. There were marches. And that's where the chemist comes in. She's actually going to get a whole big car park out of it, but I don't know if she realises that.
Interesting.
And
Okay.
it's a mixture of what happens when a fairly social and semi-well organised freedom movement community, who most of them went to Canberra.
Yeah.
They sort of live out in the sticks, where everyone's a bit sort of a rebel anyway, and they've all sort of bonded over common law meetings. There was a big common law group out where they got their strongest vote. One Nation's tied in, which also had the history here with the energy transition and issues around the future of what the economy here is going to look like with renewables coming in and a phase out of coal. And
wasn't it looking like, so with the sort of the crossover with this new council and these groups that are around this new council and the unholy alliance between them and local legitimate environmental groups, were they rocking up to environmental meetings with fucking One Nation t-shirts on or something?
this was on the Central Coast, but
It's different, yeah. Same shit, different smell?
Yeah,
different region.
big connection. I mean, we're neighbouring sort of regions, so
Yeah.
But that was what happened. You actually had an environmental group organising to confront an Aboriginal Land Council event, and half the people who rocked up wearing One Nation outfits and the others were all from my place, and all claiming to be there on behalf of the Guringai tribe, who are not real.
No. As we have discussed on the Tinfoil Tales episodes, and
Yeah.
of course, Long Con Gone On Far Too Long podcast, and various news articles which have been assisted by the girls to their very strong credit. And yeah, that's been a real unfolding.
Yeah, so no, it's a mixture of that, and then there's One Nation. It's quite funny because in the way we might all look at these groups and see them as some sort of rigid structure, it's a lot more fluid when they've been a social unit for years. They don't really listen to Bosey or Bergwerth saying if you're a member of my group, you can't be a member of their group.
All
just
that sort of
continue
political
on,
shit.
and if they've got a bit of power in the area, which there is, it's certainly gone into the coal mines, and it's and those sort of tradie businesses that revolve around them, and then there's a whole bunch of people happily getting pilled on the net, and you sort of get this very strong local element fueled by, I guess, what happens when a party like the ALP is just almost guaranteed to win power here over and over for a century.
Get lazy.
There is a lethargy that comes into that kind of governance.
Yeah.
And people are crying out for perhaps something better.
New energy?
Maybe a marginal seat status that sees a bit of money coming your
Bit
way.
of money
from,
and attention.
Yeah. So there is, along with all the madness, legitimate sentiments that, of course, have made it easier to pull people into the madness or just ignore the madness and push their thing. And that's what we've got.
It does seem like a fairly cooked area, so there is that going for it. You know, you wouldn't get that in the latte-sipping city of Sydney, but at the same time, the demographics of it, there's lots of very cooked places, especially in Victoria, and they didn't go this hard. I mean, there is the fact that the Liberals weren't on the ticket, which would have siphoned votes away from people who would have voted centre-right, and instead of voting toward the centre or using their vote in a more constructive way, just went, I guess we'll just vote for extremists then.
The loss of the Liberal ticket, and it was one of the areas where they totally fucked up. So that made the Orange Independents, as they ran as, literally the only conservative option, were this bunch of misfit One Nation sovsits and cookers, with a preacher leading them.
Fucking hell. I feel very sorry for the next few years in your local area just being run by fuckwits and just having like publicly funded signs saying like, we don't do woke in Cessnock or some shit. That's the way I'm seeing this play out. Like, they're performative if they're anything.
They're already talking about the first meeting as being a sort of massive territorial pissing event. And you can imagine, they're talking about the number of times they got prevented from entering the chamber because they were all acting like
being
crazy.
Fuckheads.
Yeah, people were scared. So they are going to storm into the first meeting with the idea in their heads that things have reversed.
They run the place now.
Now, whether the mayor recognises that and attempts to tone them down, or how that plays out, we'll find out in the next few days, I guess. But there's definitely this idea that, I mean, it's their mini version of a Trump win.
It is, but
in the boondocks.
There is a vulnerability, though. They can get sacked. There is that possibility. So, like, you know, it's not something that's likely to happen, but it can happen. I think down Jack's Way in the Southern Highlands, they got put into administration and they've been humming along ever since. You know, the bin boys getting paid. That's about it.
Yeah, well, the Central Coast next door has been under administration this term. So that's added fuel to that fire in its own way.
Because like basically, if the councillors are guilty of misconduct, and basically this is a matter of like, you know, breaches of codes and things like that, there's provisions in the Local Government Act apparently that allow the Office of Local Government I'm guessing the New South Wales government would be, to investigate these breaches. I would imagine that a New South Wales Labor government will only take so much before they just go, we can't have this. Like, this is just too fucked in the head.
That's right. But there's also ways to string that along. And
totally. If they're smart about it, they'll be subtle.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're smart about it, though.
No.
I think they're going to get giddy with power and start doing real weird, dumb shit, making noises that they shouldn't be making.
Well, there was already talk today about parking fines and not having to pay them on in some of their chat groups. So,
oh wow,
I can't. Yeah, it's like they have to run this shit now. Are you going to? You know,
that's the interesting thing.
Is council legitimate?
Are they going to fall apart the first hurdle? Like, are they just going to eat each other? Because you're going to have one side of them being like, well, you're not legitimate, I'm not paying the rates. And the other side being like, well, we shouldn't have to pay rates because maybe he's right. And then the council just goes insolvent. I mean, what do you do then?
So even though Jess Jerd was out and out my place, she never, apart from the Smart Cities debacle, she never went rates and the Constitution and all that. Their newsletter does, but never in council.
Okay. Never in council, yeah. So there is a bit of intelligence there. There's a separation.
Of awareness.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Whereas,
well, they probably know they can get canned.
Yeah, and everyone, like, you know, there's a very shocked Labor Party out there in Cessnock this week, and they shouldn't have been shocked because they were warned, but
yeah, it
no one
like
really
believes
this until it happens. Is that they will bring themselves unstuck, but we'll see. It's not necessarily true.
If they do get sacked, and basically the government makes a move, they get sacked, council goes under administration, they're going to lose their fucking minds.
Yeah, we'll give them something
and quite
else.
Rightly so, to an extent. But yeah.
I mean, it has to be on just the ball by its merits. You know, if they go ahead and behave as they've behaved as this freedom group on the outer.
Yeah, the rabble.
Yeah, but if Watton can manage to string them all together and just do the basics of council, but he's going to have to deliver on stopping this road he promised to stop, and
oh god,
that sends millions of dollars back from the council to the developer, no money. And he's also promised to give everyone curbside guttering in Cessnock, which, if you come and look at, impossible.
Wow.
Absolutely
so it's one of those things, like, he's basically done the fucking schoolyard equivalent of saying, like, there'll be Pepsi in the bubblers. And then when elected being like, well, there was never going to be Pepsi in the bubblers. I mean, that's insane. And these people won't like that.
No, you wouldn't think so. Although they might just like the feeling of power.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I would say that the idea of them getting sacked is a very real, and I think one of the things that might make some of our listeners sleep a little better, knowing that there's not a sort of like a 4-year constitutionally protected term here. There is a position of which they've been elected to with parameters and rules that have sanity involved.
That's right.
So if they're going to basically pile drive council into the ground because they've decided to stop collecting rates and stop taking parking fines because they've just lost their fucking minds, then like the New South Wales government's just going to be like, no, you're under administration, get out, it's over, like, call it a day, fellas, you can't do this. And of course, if they do things like openly endorse bigotry and hatred in pointless gestures of council funded puff, I can't see the government standing by that.
No, and that could come up quite quickly, I reckon, in terms of events that are held at the council-funded Performing Arts Centre and library and such.
Oh, totally. So it'll be fucking weird. And then you'll have the fact that that'll be backed by John Ruddock will make a stink, Malcolm Roberts will make a stink, Matt Canavan will make a stink. You're going to have all these usual suspects types. And, of course, the X types like Christensen and blah, blah. They're all going to have this whole, like, what happened to democracy? I thought we lived in Australia. I thought we had freedom.
Yeah, it was quite funny. One of their events in late July, I think, which I went along to, was Joel Jammal's visit to town, in which he described Cessnock as one of his finest prospects. That was the night he announced he'd purchased the Light paper, which he had to walk back after the people who owned the Light paper newspaper said they still owned it, and he was just collaborating.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he, interestingly, one of the candidates, Quentin King and another woman who nobody knows, who he said was behind the Save Wollombi Road campaign. I'm very interested in who she might actually be. Appeared on his ARC podcast the other night.
That ARC podcast gives me bad vibes.
Quentin King harked back to his teenage days in South Africa, where Daddy was up on the border shooting Angolans, and
Oh, good.
really happy when his captives begged him. I think he was shooting, just from the description, I might be wrong, but I think he was shooting UNITA folk and threatening to hand them over to the MPLA, who,
Good.
by all accounts, had cruel and unusual ways of punishing their enemies. So
Good.
yeah, he was smart enough not to say he wished Australia to be like apartheid South Africa, but he said it's gone too far.
Yep. Well, that's charming. What a nice, fun topic for a podcast. I'd love to participate in that. That would just be cheery and fun. Just fucking weird.
And then this strange person we'd all never heard of, who isn't even put a name to the Wollombi Road campaign, but Joel described her as being behind it. And really, in everything that's happened here and how this whole mess has built up, she and some meetings we really only heard took place are the only indication there was outside influence. It wasn't Ruddock. It wasn't One Nation. It was really just Joel coming in late and claiming he was, supporting it. But yeah, it was a very organic local thing apart from that little factor, and it was certainly a successful campaign.
Yeah. Was it well funded? Was there money involved? I don't know.
And not huge amounts, I don't think. Certainly no advertising. Or they had a convoy, they had a march, they had balloons.
Yeah.
They had the trivia night. Jess was excited because she was allowed to stay up after 8:30. It was, God, you should have said, that was the most amazing Facebook post. It was like, got to bed so late, it was 10 o'clock. It was like, right.
Very funny. Good Lord.
But yeah, that's what we've got. It can happen anywhere.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we've got an interesting few years ahead of us. We all laughed when the Liberals didn't get their applications in, and then I think it was Soz really was the first one who was like, I think this is bad. And I'm like, shit, you're right, this is bad. Oh no, this is okay, this is definitely bad. Yeah. And that's, it's the status quo. You lean on that, and then part of that falls away, and you realize that, Liberal voters are just fucking lunatics who slightly moderated by habit, and I don't think this is something that's going to push people in. I think the power of incumbency is the thing that, people like Ruddock really getting excited about, with the Libertarians having got, what you were saying, 17 councillors?
That's the word today, is that there's 17 councillors across the state. It's a lot. There was an article, he's made a post tonight about having achieved a balance of power situation in Camden, and what they are going to do is just approve every development application as is.
Cool.
So it's just anything goes in Camden. I'd imagine it's still one of the bigger growth areas. I haven't checked the boundary. Macarthur's huge as far as new suburbs go and massive developments there, but I'd imagine Camden's still got a few greenfield, what's it called? Greenfield
Bands or something? Or
no, greenfield, I think, is the development term when you've got you don't have to clear trees, but it's undeveloped land, it's paddocks.
Okay. Yeah.
Where things like horses used to be.
Yeah.
Cows.
Well, I hope that the Libertarians, with their Build Baby Build, just remember that building defects are bad. As a general rule, building defects are bad. I don't mind otherwise, but that's just something they should just be aware of. As a concept, as a practice, letting people just put up things made of bloody gyprock and dreams, and then when they fall over, the Aussie battlers they like to fucking yak on about will find themselves losing all of their money and owing the bank. Yeah, not quite fair. So that'll be interesting.
and the one thing the freedom movement and for want of a better term, far right is using at the moment is homelessness and cost of living and the housing crisis to reap in support and claim there's a big conspiracy against them. So yeah, you've got Ruddock just adding fuel to that out in southwest sort of fringes of Sydney, and the Central Coast's another classic example of that. And
yeah, that checks out.
Everywhere up, yeah.
I think what's going to happen is the Liberals are going to kick a lot of these people off council next term anyway. So
you'd think so, or it's funny. Jess Jerd today said that the Libs had actually approached them for preference deal. This is before the Libs found they were nobody to do preference deals with.
Yes, that's problematic, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting because the three Libs on council here generally voted against the madness of the four
being
cookers
more
and
moderate.
It's not necessarily going to stay that way.
No,
especially with incumbency, like you said.
Yeah, the incumbency thing's a bitch, but it's local government, and when it comes to local government, the one thing that we can tell is that no one gives a fuck and no one knows anything. So yes, they've got a lot of grassroots support, and the cooker guys are going to firm themselves in because they're going to have a real base and they're going to make that work. They're going to organise, they're going to do that, sort of blah, blah, blah. But also, you're just going to have a bunch of people who just voted for independence because they didn't want to vote Labor or Green. And then they're just going to go back to voting Liberal. And they're going to lose like a third of their vote.
That's right.
If they run again, they might get fucking sacked.
We shall see. It will be entertaining. I'm not going to miss the first meeting.
Yeah, I think, go there, but,
we'll need to be careful.
Yeah, I'll be carrying a big stick.
Yeah, and then you get the opposite situation out in West. I think it was 14 councils in far west New South Wales did not hold an election because everyone who put their hand up to be on council will be on council. There were not enough candidates.
Wow.
So that's the other situation out in the places nobody thinks about unless they visit.
Yeah. And that's quite tricky. And in that situation, you just have people, placeholders getting in. And then do you run that or do you just, because, if you're running, you're running. You should, it's like Babbitt, he, renounced his citizenship before he went up. And everyone sort of thought, oh, fuck, it'd be great if he got 44'd. And he didn't because he did. He did his due diligence. He was ready to get up and he did. And that was a fucking fluke. But this is the thing. If you're going to run, you sort of need to be ready for it. If you don't renounce your thing, if you don't do your due diligence, then you sort of shouldn't run at all.
Yeah.
Anyway, but it's not for me to say. But at the same time, people do Bradbury into positions of power. We've seen it, and you shouldn't be surprised when it happens. To the point where you're like, oh, actually, no, let's just not have elections anymore. No, sucked in. You're a councillor now.
Yeah, amazing. It's
it's going to be very interesting.
It's quite funny. The coasties who care, also known as My Place ticket, just ran in one ward on the Central Coast. But as of tonight, the votes have come in throughout the day, and they've been ahead. Never by more than 100. Tonight they're behind by 40 for the third spot. They've given up on Facebook. They just didn't understand what they were looking at and realised that they're right in with a red-hot shot and just announced, well, that was fun. What are we going to do next? And we're going, well, actually, you're looking kind of good.
Yeah.
So it's sometimes a bit hard to tell exactly where they're at when the numbers come in, but I'd just say it looks like there's about 80% counted, and I'm presuming maybe the other 20% of the other 20%, 10% probably didn't vote, and the other 10% are below the line. So we've got the below the line to come, where the My Place number 2 wrote out a huge manifesto about how she was allowed to be intelligent and bear her belly button in a Facebook photo.
Cool.
So if that wins the day, we could have a My Place councillor ridden in by conservation groups, an Aboriginal tribe that nobody acknowledges real, and we don't need to say any more about that, really.
That's quite sad. So a belly button picture is going to get us a cooked right-wing council.
I
Possibly.
really hope not. Oh my God, she's just the full
Just the full cook bingo.
anti-vax kit and caboodle. Yeah, just
Yeah.
every.
I can't imagine these guys holding their shit together long enough to not be sacked.
No, well, this is the Central Coast, so fortunately they'll just be one of a lot of Liberal and Labor. But again,
Okay.
funnily enough, the My Place candidates voted no in the referendum to lessen the number of councillors from 15 to 9. So I don't know if Penny and Darren will be happy about that when they hear about it. You've actually had their number acknowledging the legitimacy of local government and voting for more councillors.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's just what you get. Hypocrisy, cookers, not a problem.
No, never has been, never will be. Well, speaking of proxy and cookers, wasn't there some kind of thing with a documentary and a bit of a fundraising scam?
My Place, Sydney, just incredible and awful. There's a fellow, he's quite well known. Some of your listeners might be familiar with Glenn Fisher, who he was one of that group of people known as the Forgotten Australians who...
That doesn't sound good.
No, I think the numbers 50 to 60,000 who were victims of institutional abuse during the 60s, 70s and 80s.
Okay. So, yeah, he's written a book.
Yeah, Predator's Paradise.
Yeah.
He does a lot of lives around the cross, which is where he ended up when his life got very bad. And what happened after you and I went to the launch of My Place Sydney, and I think it was about this time last year.
That was pretty funny, yeah.
At Barangaroo.
Yeah, that was boring.
And it was so boring and just weird. And
yeah, Billy Bay did his speech, and it was just this flood of gibberish. And I'm just like, who the fuck believes anything you just said? You are delusional, to say the least. It's embarrassing to think that someone could possibly think anything that you just said had any merit whatsoever. You're making this up as you go.
And very quickly after that, Penny Johnston came in with her mad rants and Bergworth was there. But you really didn't sense there was much momentum within Sydney to keep the whole thing going. They made a map dividing Sydney into 4 quarters, and
that was pretty funny.
Yeah, and that soon fell apart, although it hasn't in the end.
Yeah, okay.
But what's happened was very quickly the major project of Sydney My Place, even though they weren't meeting regularly, was this documentary that it went under several names, which was part of the scam, about the Forgotten Australians, who it just should be remembered that there's a vast amount of these people who just had this awful, awful upbringing in institutions and were removed from families in ways that were very arbitrary.
Yeah.
So there was this idea within My Place they were going to make a documentary about it, but in the My Place set of mindset was always going to confuddle a very real and serious issue, with the 28 pedo narratives.
Always.
And I don't think it's really my place to look at what Glenn Fisher or people who grew up in that situation. I can't imagine how they think around that, though. I've certainly heard those sort of conspiratorial narratives in some of Glenn's posts, and I think what's happened is that My Place has come along. They found a filmmaker who not only, an apparent filmmaker who not only boasted his credentials as a serious documentary maker, but he very quickly had all the admin rights and seemed to be holding all the sway within My Place Sydney. He was writing, he made a promo video just for Darren personally.
Yeah, okay.
There were lots of trailers, and as this documentary seemed to grow, it had multiple names. One was Lost Innocence, another was Failed System. And Ben Down, this documentary maker, which is a very suspicious name, and I think I posted some of it in the Facebook group, and there were a few jokes made about that name, and I had no idea who he was, so it was kind of funny. But as it turned out, the jokes were very valid, because this filmmaker who had achieved total power within My Place Sydney, and we can play some of the trailer, he turned out to be none other than a guy called Sean Kirsten, who's one of Australia's most notorious con men. He goes back to 2017 and beyond, where he was a reality TV contestant. How did surprise, surprise. It was a lose weight show. I can't remember. It's called Unload, or it was a Channel 9 weight loss reality show. And he'd also posed as a doctor, claiming to have cured people of cancer at, you might remember the Glee Healing Centre scandal.
Okay.
And obviously the HCCC came in and banned him from practicing anything. But his whole claim was he was nutrition and dietetics for Canterbury Bulldogs, Manly Sea Eagles, Adelaide Crows.
He's got a fascinating resume of bullshit. He was also a senior lecturer at the University of Sydney.
Yep, and Royal Prince Alfred Hospital. He was a doctor.
He was working at RPA at the obesity ward.
Bullshit.
Yep.
So he was none other than Ben Down, documentary maker and now coordinator of My Place Sydney.
Now coordinator. Has he not been kicked the fuck out?
He's been kicked the fuck out, but yeah. And that was where this whole thing came out, was that Glenn Fisher and a young woman, Kiera, who they appeared to have pulled into the project as a producer after meeting her at a Palestine rally, and it just seemed to be a really random thing. She didn't seem to be particularly inclined towards My Place, but just it seemed like she heard a story she believed was genuine and wanted to help. Anyway, so they, in late August, about 4 weeks ago, appeared online suddenly doing a live for just under an hour about how this Ben Down character had been exposed, Sean Kirsten, and that he had run away with the money. And
do you know how much money it was?
It was a GoFundMe. So they said it wasn't that bad what they've lost in the GoFundMe, but they said that it was under $5,000. But most people, they said, had donated to him personally.
Ooh. Yeah, they like doing that.
I can't imagine this cat hanging around for peanuts, given his previous history.
Yeah,
okay. Most alarmingly, they said the whole thing had fallen apart, and that a large number of the victims, and they numbered the victims as over 100, either people who'd lost money or people who'd offered their stories and told their stories, and you can imagine the trauma that goes with that for some of those people. Some of these people were still refusing to believe that Ben Down documentary maker was in fact Sean Kirsten conman, and was still staying loyal to this Ben Down character, expecting him to tell a story that they'd probably never had the chance to tell previously.
Yeah, that's a pretty sincere betrayal of trust.
It's massive and it's dangerous. You can only imagine what's going on there. And I think the video was up for less than 2 hours. They took it down, and it was only fluke that I managed to catch it. And in the end, you had Penny Johnston, our fabulous Penny, number 2 for My Place nationally, say that, we've had an unfortunate occurrence with our documentary in Sydney. People can get money back from GoFundMe. And then it was just, the conversation just was shut down. There was no acknowledgement of what's happening. You had Kiera and Glenn Fisher saying they were going to bring Ben down, but you're kind of looking at them going, well, no, you're not. You've been done. And
you've been done,
In the meantime, there's all these individuals out there who, Glenn Fisher said he lost lifelong friendships over it. And there just seems to be this massive issue being swept under the carpet at a My Place level. And obviously none of them are going to go to the authorities about this because, you can just imagine what might come out there.
Yeah, interesting.
They said that there were 2 children working on the film, and with that insanely awful subject matter, you had what looked like a couple of teenagers from the photos operating the camera and the sound out on film shoots, and they said they were being counselled, God knows who by, probably Craig Cole. It's an absolute mess, and one figures everyone's just gone quiet, and it'll probably never see the light of day.
Well, his Mr. Robot 1968-9 Instagram profile is private.
He locked everything down as it happened.
Well, he's got a Threads profile here which isn't locked, and there's a few posts here. And one of the interesting things is there's a few posts about the documentary, but there's also a few posts about basically Free Palestine and Palestinian activists and just general, Free Palestine movement. Don't love the idea of him infiltrating that for personal gain, but
he was always,
maybe that'll be smarter.
Yeah, he was always hanging around that space and the Julian Assange space, where he seemed to pull in a lot of the people who worked on the film from. I think it was remember the rally in the Domain? I think it might have been the disinformation bill rally where Bergwerf and Guru and Beck Freedom all spoke.
Well, was that the vote no one?
No, it was the disinformation bill.
That was the one at Hyde Park.
It was the free speech rally in the Domain. And he was obviously on camera duty there alongside our normal favourite Sydney vloggers.
Yes.
And it was interesting because Beck Freedom and Guru were both interviewed, and he made little clips of them and, clearly ingratiating himself as
currying favour with the usuals.
Yeah, so you actually, one of the women who is in the Forgotten Australians generation, Mary Dolores Brownlee, is still stating that she would like to see the film go ahead, and she's still Western Sydney My Place coordinator. So she did an interview, quite a long interview, on Beck Freedom's podcast, and Beck very much promoted the GoFundMe.
Yeah,
I mean,
you'd feel a bit silly.
At the very least, you'd think Beck should take that back and warn people, and along with Guru, who also promoted this doco.
They don't love being wrong. I think Beck Freedom, for all of her flaws, is probably one of the most likely ones who would say, yep, I got it wrong. I fucked up. You know, this was bad. Especially something as sensitive as this. Whereas Guru is the kind of guy who has that that funny narcissism streak where it's like, no, man, we were just stitched up by the deep state. I didn't get it wrong. We just stitched up by the deep state, mate. They got us, but they got us because we're in over our heads, and they're bigger than we ever thought, but we're still winning. Whereas Beck's like, nah, there's a con man, and he was pretty convincing, and he's got other people, So I respect that sanity. But then again, like, how fucking low is the bar there? Oh, admitting I got something wrong is a virtue. Like, yeah, all right, sick one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that sounds like a fucking mess. Like, of course, the main thing, and of course, this is something that's close to Jack's heart with the work he's done with Ryan and all those sort of guys, Unholy Trinity, and just like this child sex offense stuff. You need to treat it so carefully, and you need to be so sensitive. To scam people around something like this is just next fucking level.
So wrong.
And for people to be so enthusiastic about jumping on the virtue signaling bandwagon around it because apparently you get a gold star for not liking pedos. I mean, fucking well done. And to be so reckless with vulnerable people is just take a look in the fucking mirror. Of course they won't. They'll get scammed by this. They'll say I was a con artist, and they'll move on to doing the exact same bullshit. But I mean, these are the people who, they valorize Peter Little, who's having like serious delusions. And they're like, no, he's actually having predictions. He's a prophet. You're like, don't tell someone who's manic having an episode that they're a prophet. Take them to hospital. They need to be sedated before they take a walk off a fucking short pier. Fucking idiots. It's very difficult to reconcile.
Yeah, there were comments on the My Place, on Penny's post, saying, oh, well, I'm sure we'll do a good job at whatever we do next. And it was like, okay,
on to the next thing.
Yeah,
zero self-awareness.
No thought as to what is clearly carnage.
Yeah, it'd be very hard to open up to people and then realise that it's a fucking con artist. I've had that in my experience in our family. We got done by a con artist, not like significantly. It was mostly betrayal of trust. But the amount of times that we sort of confided in this person, that we, really opened up to him. He's a part of our extended family. He faked cancer. It was a whole fucking thing. And there is so much to it. And it wasn't anything nearly as intense as this. Having a con artist sit down and take footage of you possibly saying something for the first time about the most traumatic experience, or arguably the most traumatic experience of their lives, I don't know. I don't want to speak for them. But what I can say is that taking advantage of that and exploiting it takes a certain type of fucking sociopath. And this Ben Down fella, Sean Kirsten, I mean, what a fucking scumbag. These people should be shot to Mars. I got no time for it. Like, because, what do you do with them? Like, they're just going to keep doing it. This man will never stop fucking people over. It's out of control.
No, yeah.
All right, well, what's next on the agenda?
Fergus the cat.
Oh, I was hoping you'd say that. I've even got some posts here that I looked up on Facebook. But you lead in with some Fergus. But I've got your post here from August 27th. And I've also got a post from My Place Mildura, which I find very funny. So tell us about Fergus the cat.
We're not leaving My Place, but we're going to Mildura. Where Jez and Kyle's rampage around that town, the two
Jez and Kyle's Adventures is a Facebook page with 115 followers. More content than viewers, by the looks of things.
they're out every day filming something and really shitting someone off. But
God.
it all kicked off when their cat Fergus disappeared, and there's a post from them a couple of days before it all kicked off saying Fergus is missing, and just that generally very sad post you see from your friends online when their pet
When your cat's missing, that's fucking
yeah,
sad.
and
Yeah.
you're just hoping it comes back or whatever.
Yeah.
But happy endings mainly. But anyway, the post kicks off with Des and Kylie storming the Mildura pound because Fergus has been found in custody, and it's a 9-minute video, and it begins with the Constitution and a bizarre-looking document of registration from the Conscious Villagers Association being handed over at the desk, and the claim being made that under Section 109 of the Constitution, any inconsistency in law under anything other than federal government level means that federal government, the Constitution overrules the council's cat registration, pet registration.
So what is the fucking act, the federal act, that overrules the local government's delegated bloody legislation
No
on
act.
cats?
Just
Is there
the
a federal
Constitution.
cat act?
No, it's the Constitution.
It's just the fucking vibe, isn't it, lads? It's the fucking vibe. Jesus.
And as this live was progressing, comments were coming in saying that Fergus the cat had been kidnapped and that councils lure cats out of their homes to kidnap them, and it was all kicking off.
Especially awake cats from awake owners.
Yeah, and this woman who was on duty at the pound wasn't taking any of it. I think she'd had dealings with them before from the way she was talking, but
yeah, okay.
And she took this fantastic approach where she just said, these laws you're following, that's great, but I'm just following mine, and that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
which is state law. And so there was a whole thing about whether under this Conscious Villagers Association sovereign registration, the cat seems to become an entity other than just a pet. It's sort of one of the family, as a human might be. They go from calling it their child to being one of the family, to that's being held captive and hostage.
All based on laws they've made up.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I do know what having a pet's like, and it is one of the family. But
of course it is, but it's also legally property, which is kind of sad.
and then,
that's what it is, guys.
There's this very funny moment where Jez is trying to pronounce the word inconsistency. It just goes over and over, and he actually falls about laughing at his own ineptitude. But then they go on to it's just put to them, if you do the paperwork, you can get Fergus back, and that just isn't a thought that's occurred to them. So they tell her they've served her and that they mean it, and because they've served her, no sort of amount of protection around her job will protect her. She is personally liable for kidnapping and hostage holding of Fergus the cat. It also means that they also then move on to wanting to do a welfare check on Fergus. And
yes.
That's where it really kicks off, because again they're told if they just do the paperwork, the process of having Fergus the cat brought back can begin, but they refuse to register Fergus. They refuse to sign any paperwork. They open the door to they're allowed in for the welfare check. They open the door to his cage, at which point the cops are called and there's a lot of yelling.
God.
It's also
what a great use of police time.
It's also pointed out that if Fergus was microchipped, this would have been sorted out the minute But of course
Microchipped? I only let Elon Musk microchip me. No one else is allowed to microchip me except for the Nazi nerd on Twitter.
But then there's this moment.
Ooh, drum roll.
They have vaccinated Fergus.
Oh my
At the pound.
God. Oh my. Cats can't even get COVID and there's no other vaccines, so this doesn't make any sense.
And we can listen to the clip.
Yeah, I think I might post the entire clip at the end of the episode, unless I'm going to go through and fish out the best bits. But it sounds like the entire thing is the best bits, really. I mean, this is just fucking silly. Just so fucking silly. So basically, their cat gets out. It's not microchipped. The council picks it up, takes it to a vet. The vet takes it in, gives it a look over, doesn't see a microchip, gives it a vaccine because it probably needs one. And to be honest, those vaccines are really expensive and they've done them like a massive favor. And when they turn up, they refuse to do any paperwork because they're sob-city lunatics. And then when they finally find out that a positive health decision has been made on the cat's behalf, they lose their little fucking feral minds.
And leave without the cat.
They leave without the cat.
Might have happened anyway because I think there's a quarantine period. The pound point out that Fergus has to go through now. He's been vaccinated.
Oh, God. They would have hated that.
It was, the clip's amazing. It's, you did what?
Fucking amazing. That's just great. So we'll put the clip in, but some of the things that I want to add here, just based on my very basic research here on the side, here's the My Place Mildura post that I really, really like. This is from Kylie Elizabeth, who says, Mildura Rural City Council have abducted Fergus the cat and holding him for ransom. These thugs believe they are above international law. So it's not federal anymore. We've gone up to international law. I'm currently studying international law and I'm waiting for the cat treaty. Haven't got it yet. Look, I'm only halfway through. So I'm sure the cat treaty's coming. Or they're just plain ignorant. Or both. They can't fathom that there are actual laws, not their bullshit legislation, that protect us from them. They believe there is only one way, their way. Imagine being so proud to work for this corrupt corporation. It's mind-blowing. The emblem on my uniform says Mildura Rural City Council. If you'd like to do a welfare check on Fergus tomorrow, the number is phone number. They've already vaccinated him without the owner's consent. This could work out very badly for MRCC at everyone. So everyone in the group got a fucking notification because this blowhard wanted to talk about cat law on an international basis. It's Juice Kogan's that you can't vaccinate cats. It's customary international law. It definitely is. See, I learned those two things in the last couple of weeks. That's how much I'm paying in Hex. So that's dumb. That is sincerely fucking dumb. And that is where, and they've shared the thing. And just to give you a bit of an idea of how great the comments are. Oh my God, this is shocking. Hope Fergus is back home soon. Okay, good. Now we're talking. They think they're a law unto themselves. These tin pot you-know-whats. Damn council. Oh my God, who do they think they are? Now, this is what we like. Now, unfortunately, every now and then a My Place member isn't a fucking idiot. And this one says, a cat should not be roaming free. As an imported species, they do so much harm to native wildlife if they are not managed. Mind blown when responsibilities are not taken for pet ownership, especially cats. And then you just get... And then, of course, sorry guys, I can't be with you on this one. I have been a supervisor there when the RSP had it. She's doing her job. She cannot do anything more unless it's taken with her manager, of which there are 27 replies. It's just whinging. But of course, that isn't really where it ends. Because unfortunately, actually no, fortunately, it'd be better if Fergus was rehomed without insane people. But fortunately, Fergus has been rehomed in his own home. And I'm just going to listen to this quickly. So they posted a video of their dog with the caption, so after the pound jabbed our cat and he came home, all our pets are doing this. And it's a cat, it's a dog basically just breathing. It's like sort of sneezing. And apparently someone says it's reverse sneezing, which is a concept. It could be kennel cough. Not surprising considering the fact all their fucking pets aren't vaccinated. And, oh my God, the suggestions. So the first one, colloidal silver in their water. What could possibly go wrong there? And then we have get some CBD oil into them. Good. One person says there might be a grass seed in the nose, which is fine. But then they say, nah, mate, all 3 pets are doing it. Kennel cough sounds about right. Then, of course, we have the fact that it's the toxins of the jab. And then we've got this one who is a fucking bingo card of supplements. This person's cupboard is worth a fortune. They want milk thistle, a binder, bentonite clay, zeolite, or activated charcoal. To be honest, I don't think they both have the same function, so that's kind of dumb. And then lovely says, poor baby, I hope feels better soon, which is nice. So, I mean, what do you do with these people? I mean, really, Fergus the cat probably deserves better owners, but it's quite absurd. Just think that sob-sit bullshit has reached the point where even people working at a fucking like animal welfare center or a pound have to deal with this bullshit. Like, we said we'd pay the ransom and the cat is registered. I don't see why people need to have a go. And it's like, because you're wrong. It's because you're wrong, Jeremy, with a spelling mistake. I mean, oh, my God. These are very strange fucking people. But I do like the Fergus the cat concept. It is quite funny. Just cookers behaving strangely, really.
I like those things too because it just shows a level of where these folks are always at in terms of their everyday life and thinking.
Yeah.
They're just
constantly at war with nobody.
Yeah, and it leads to tragic circumstances, as we know.
Well, at least your cat getting vaccinated, which is very sad. Unfortunately, that cat being vaccinated didn't vaccinate your other pets who are now sick. But no, that's vaccine shedding.
Yes.
Sorry, that's not the fact that you guys haven't done basic things to prevent kennel cough. Anyway, so that's incredibly silly. Now, to close, I want to take you back. I want to take you back on a mystical journey, back to lockdown, back to the pandemic, when you experienced. Was this one of your first experiences with cookers in public, or?
Oh yeah,
your Woolworths experience? I'm going to read the post,
that one.
and then I want you to tell us about it. So, because this post tickled me pink. So, just met this dude getting in the faces of people at Woolies. He was besieging an elderly couple in aisle 16, so thought I'd attempt to de-escalate matters by offering to shout him 20 litres of bleach and assist him with drinking it. Hardly a sophisticated conversation, but it kind of worked because he left the couple alone and came charging at me with stuff about 666 Satan pedophiles and buying like sheep, which is just classic. Kept my 2 meters of space with the help of a mop. He's currently in the car park assisting 4 cops with their inquiries, and I basically figured they can all sort themselves out. Anyway, it all came back to shouting because the heavy metal checkout chick told me there are beers on her at the yacht club when lockdown's over. Best entertainment I've had in weeks, and the photo is a man wearing a jacket with "COVID is a scam" stenciled on the back of it, looking very alone and very sad.
It was locked. It was the Delta lockdown. It was,
yeah, okay.
So the first set of COVID restrictions were quite good to me. Apart from, my mum had passed away, which was sad, but I also ended up in a good space sorting out her place in Sydney. I had a national park out the back gate to.
Yeah, okay. That sounds pretty nice.
I wasn't on the 13th floor of a dodgy tower block in southwest Sydney or anything like that.
Yeah, or locked in your fucking tower block in Melbourne.
Yeah, that's right. But the second part was a bit weird because I just moved back to the Hunter Valley looking for a home, and I ended up in my friend's Bessabrick dungeon for the duration in Toronto. And I'd gone down to the shops and I met this guy, and I could have been, I was basically just in a Bessabrick dungeon doing my work and
Head down.
probably listening to the podcast, and that was my life. And I was itching for some kind of interaction. And it was funny because I was doing the shopping run for the household on foot, and I just heard this shouting across the aisles, and I think I'd seen him in the car park on the way in and going,
That sounds about right.
there's a cooker, and what's he going to do? And then the shouting began, and he was basically going through the supermarket confronting everyone in masks and doing his
and getting all
bit. And
pissy
then
on that. Yeah.
by the time he got close to me, he was right at this couple just screaming blue murder, and I thought, right, I can do something about this. But, and it was funny because he the fine he would have got when the cops fined him, but it was one of those fines that got refunded.
Returned.
I realised.
But he earned that one, which is a shame.
He sure did. Anyway, it took me a while. But I knew eventually I'd come across a name attached to him just in the region, but it actually turns out he's down in Canberra at the moment trying to reinvigorate the calling across the lake.
Oh my God. So he hasn't got past it. This is him now.
Yeah, this is him.
3 years later, going strong.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
And I did spot him. Fortunately, he didn't recognise me, probably because I had a mask on.
I guess so, yeah.
At a Lake Macquarie My Place meeting. He was hanging around there back
Very
last year.
nice. Wow, so he really has just not given up. He's
they're
gone
amazing.
From height to height.
They're amazing, these little networks. I mean, I always get back to Stephen Bannon saying, go into your local communities and
it's fucking worked.
Kick off the spots. It's a social network. I mean, it's when, however many tens of thousands went to Canberra, a protest of that size creates a life
networks.
Something that big is something
it's
you'll
not
remember
just getting
for the rest
STIs
of your life.
and pink eye. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a really fun time.
If you weren't there, you wish you were there.
Yeah, or you lie you were there, of course. There is that.
That's right.
I'm sure a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, I went to Woodstock. No, you didn't. You weren't at Canberra. Shut the fuck up. Yeah, I was there from the start, man. So I thought that was a good place to end it because basically it is fun to think that that weird cooker in the supermarket that you just thought maybe would just move on to something else hasn't. And a lot of people did move on after the pandemic. I think a lot of people have sort of normalized, probably voting terribly and still being slightly obnoxious at Christmas, but not turning up and yelling at buildings and being a general public pest. But every now and then, the guy that was hassling people at Woolies just decides, you know what? No, this is me. I think this is my life now. What a wonderful way to spend it.
Yeah, it's funny. I can drop in to the local out in my community now and talk with some of the folks who were in Canberra, and they've got their rural rebel thing on, but they will say we're not as weird as the two who have really gone down the rabbit hole. So
that's interesting.
And we can have a little giggle at how far down the rabbit hole those two are. But
it was like when I had a conversation with someone about that. I was like, you don't believe in the white hats and shit, do you? And it's just like, no. I'm just like, I didn't think you did. Like, I mean, that's a bit much, right? Like, it's like, yeah. But of course, like that just ends up being a shroud for like anti-trans shit. But
I mean, this mob undoubtedly helped create the council we've got tonight, and But
Yeah,
we all
well-
grew up with each other, so we'll see how it goes.
Yes, you may lose some friends out of this, but I think at the end of the day, it's probably for the best. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on. We needed that. It's been a while since we've really done a good cooker wrap-up, and I hope to get you back on to just do some classic, wholesome, looking at cookers, having a giggle, because they're inherently funny. And it's one of the biggest reasons why this podcast started is the fact that I just found myself, as a former conspiracy theorist, sort of looking at the conspiracy scene and being like, oh my God, yeah, you guys have jumped the shark really hard. And then when they jump the shark, they're like, oh, you haven't seen nothing yet. And it's just been a continual, just like rolling joke ever since. And any kind of rationality has been lost in the fact that, well, I mean, like, you know, this has been so normalized. The US are thinking of electing a guy who thinks Haitians are eating fucking cats and dogs. So keep us sane, keep us updated, and we'll hopefully do this again soon.
We'll let you know how the first few meetings go.
Oh, fuck me. Yeah, go in there and keep tabs on it. In the meantime, here is the uncut, unbridled edition of Fergus the Cat getting vaccinated. Enjoy.
I don't think I ever want to talk to any of those people.
Fuck me, you guys are bastards.
Awesome. So there's just a copy for you. So that,
I've got it. I don't need a copy.
awesome. Here's a copy of 109 section of the Constitution. So it states that state is not over Commonwealth or international.
Yeah, okay. That's fine. If you want to take that stuff to Madden Avenue office...
No, that's fine. We're not dealing with that. It's personal. It's a personal issue.
The registration form for you to complete, please.
So you read the email that says
He's already
we don't have to. It's not our policy.
Might not be your policy, but it's a law we abide by.
So that's where section 109 comes in. So that's actually above state law. Do you understand that?
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
I have a duty to perform, and
as it says in there, just I get you.
The legislation that I adhere to
Is
the Domestic
state.
Animals Act.
It's state.
Yep.
And
And that's
so
what I adhere to.
Commonwealth overrides it.
Okay. So you can take that into Madden Avenue.
No,
Andrew
we're just dealing with you who's captured and hostaged our pet family member.
I'm happy to release the animal once the appropriate paperwork is completed.
Yeah, it has been. It's all there.
No.
We've done that. We're not registering with two different places. That'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
Well,
So we've registered for the Constance Village Association, which has all the Fergus's details, and we know that it is a lawful and above states. Okay, we go by the Constitution.
yep.
Okay,
And
not
you
the state
guys-
regulations. Regulations don't trump.
Regulations you would want to adhere to.
Awesome. So we can pick them up then.
I adhere to the state government legislation which says...
Which is overridden by Section 109, which you can see there, and I've served you with that.
Yeah, so
Yep.
there's a registration.
So there's Section 109 for you to have a read, so you do know.
It's...
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it?
Kim?
Where a law of the state is inconsistent with a law of the Commonwealth, the latter shall prevail.
Okay.
And that the former shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be invalid. Okay? That's straight from the legislation. And you gave us legislation yesterday, so I'm now giving you a higher
I
legislation.
didn't give you any legislation yesterday because you weren't here. I spoke with Kim, who is the owner.
Us, our family, us, that's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. Kim is the owner of the cat, according to the statutory legislation.
That is a family member there. That is
Victorian.
Yep, that's a family member you've got in jail there. Yeah.
Kim, I'm happy to do the paperwork with you to get Fergus out. If you don't want to complete this paperwork, that's fine. You will need to go to the Madden Avenue office and you can discuss it with me.
Sorry, you can deal with that because the next step is he gets in contact with you. Okay? The next step is with you. It's not with council. You're the one holding our cat.
Yep.
Yep.
And the emblem on my uniform is council. So you can either complete the paperwork or I will be asking...
No, sorry, it's in a personal capacity now, okay? You need to realise that and you need to read this and take it on board.
I've read it.
Great. So it's your personal capacity. So what you're doing now is putting yourself in a little tricky situation because we don't deal with council, we deal with people.
I'm done with this conversation.
Awesome.
If you don't want to complete this paperwork in order to get your cat
So
out,
I'd like to do a welfare check also.
Okay. So
On Pussa?
thank you very much. You need to leave.
I'd like to do a welfare check on the cat, our family member.
Follow me forward. You
Beautiful.
can have a look at the cat and then you remove the
So, guys, this is Mildura Rural City Council Pound. I'd like you to like and share. They've kidnapped a family member.
He's been here a week and hasn't been away.
No, I'm not opening the door. Due to the scenario that this currently due to the scenario, do not indirect me.
Go get another staff member so I can hold my animal.
I'm
Go
happy
get
for you
another
to
staff
assess.
You can see the distress this is causing, not just us, but our child who cries every night.
Go get another staff member
Kim?
to mind the door
Kim?
and let me hold my animal.
Do you want to just go and call the police, please? Thank you. You can assess the animal. You can see he's healthy and he's happy and he's well cared
Hear that?
for.
You can call the
vet's
police.
How would I
been
know
here
if he's
today.
well cared for?
Well,
He's in a freaking cage.
if you were focusing on the cat and not me, you would see that.
He wants to
Okay.
go home.
Well, as soon as you complete the paperwork that's required, you can.
I've completed the
I-
paperwork with the P&A. I've completed it. I've done that and I've paid it. I've paid his registration, and that's the
In
end of it.
council, there is no registration. Okay?
But
And
it
that
says
is
it
where
on that
needs to
form,
be.
registration. So I'm not paying two
I've explained
registrations.
to you-
I've paid
I've
one
explained to you
registration.
that the only registration that is required, because this animal lives in the Mildura Council area, the registration is required to be completed with Mildura Rural City Council. Okay? That is the state law. That is the law we adhere to. Okay, you can adhere to whatever other beliefs you want to.
It's not a belief.
It's not a belief, it's a law.
It's a
that
law.
we adhere to is a state government law. Okay?
To-
So if you want to
understand.
continue to show me this sort of behaviour, you can remove yourself from the building.
What?
Please do not let the cat out.
I'm not
okay?
letting him out. I'm touching him. He's my animal.
Close the door.
No, I won't. Call the police. I don't care.
Oh, I'm not letting him escape while
He's not escaping. I told you to close the door. I wanted to hold my animal.
If you keep displaying that level of aggression, I will call the police. Okay?
Do what you want, lady.
She's petting a cat. Give her a break.
The
You
attitude
de-escalate,
that I got
by the way.
yesterday, the attitude I got
Oh, sorry, it's all on
yesterday was
camera,
not
and there was
pleasant.
no.
I know, it is all
Yes,
on
no.
camera.
Yesterday was all on camera, and the stuff you were saying to other people in the council, which was caught on film. Yes, you do remember that now, don't you?
I know what attitude I got yesterday in this room, which is also under camera.
If your family member was taken and your child is crying each night, would you not be upset to some degree?
The animal's been here we're on day 7 now.
Yes, and we could not find him, and we were distressed for 7 days.
Okay, the animal's been here.
Yes.
If the microchip was registered to you guys, we would have been able to contact you on the day we got him.
Have you got his collar? Did you remove his collar or not?
We have not removed any collar.
So someone's removed the collar.
I don't know. He didn't have
Maybe.
one on. when
Maybe
we
they
got
removed
in
the collar.
here.
Maybe they didn't.
We did vaccinate him on
You what?
No, no.
21st of the 8th.
You
because
vaccinated our...
Absolutely, we
Stop.
vaccinate every animal
Stop.
that comes in.
So that was without the owner's permission, which you didn't know until what time?
Well, if we didn't know the owner until
yesterday,
because
yeah.
we had actually
So when's the cut-off period for
8 days.
when an animal can be taken or is in
Pre-home,
your control?
8 days.
Right.
You told me 14 days.
8 days is a legal requirement. We vaccinate and hold for 8 days before we can rehome. Okay, so he's currently actually doing his quarantine.
So before the 8 days, you went and did a medical procedure on the cat.
We
Yeah,
actually
I'm just getting the
vaccinate
facts, that's
and we
all.
health assess every animal as we can, like a couple of days a week, to ensure that every animal here is healthy, cared for,
Yeah.
and monitored.
Okay. Could you please not do any more medical procedures
Without
consent?
Well, if the cat was microchipped to you, we would have been able to contact you immediately.
It's not the point. We're telling you in future,
Okay.
don't do
Yeah.
any more
Cool.
medical procedures on our animal. In future. Me?
See you, mate.
Please leave. No, please leave.
After you.
Excuse me?
She said you're rude.
Oh, I heard what she said.
Yeah, you're being rude.
Thank you very much.
Well, probably wasn't as successful as what it could have been. All right, guys, over and out for now.